All right. Right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's program. My name is Annie Tillman, and I am the Adult Program Coordinator at the Schaumburg Library. Tonight, we have Monica joining us. She's going to talk about the zero waste mindset and how you can reduce waste in your own home. If you have any questions throughout the program, please feel free to drop those in the chat or using the Q&A box. If you're joining us on Zoom, you can also use the chat box on YouTube if you're joining us on YouTube. If you haven't had an opportunity to, please go ahead and fill out the poll that you see on your screen. That helps us to know how many folks are watching from each household. Helps us take better statistics, and we really appreciate it. Without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to Monica.
Great, thanks. Thank you so much for joining us this evening virtually. I miss seeing friendly faces in the crowd, so I'll just imagine that you are all awed by my amazing performance tonight. So I'm here to talk about the zero waste mindset. If you don't know what zero waste is, it's an idea of trying to reduce the amount of waste that you create in your life. Then the word zero is a little bit misleading. The goal, yes, would be zero, but it is pretty impossible. I am not one of those people who collects all my garbage in one jar for the year. That would be great, but it's not very realistic. So hopefully tonight I'll teach you all some tips and some ways that you can reduce the amount of waste that you're creating and sort of just give you some things to work towards and things that are feasible for you in your life. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and here we go. All right, here from the beginning. Okay. So my name is Monica Chavez. I work at the Skokie Public Library. I'm the administrative assistant to the director there. I am a part of the green team and just have an interest in environmental and green kinds of issues. And so last year sometime, the library had asked me to do a program about reducing waste, which I did for my own library. And from there, I just started kind of doing the library circuit and presenting in different places all over the place. So I miss going to visit different libraries and seeing people and visiting different places to see what other libraries are like. But it's also nice to be able to do this from the comfort of my home as well. So hopefully no small children will jump into this presentation as we get through it. But that's sort of how things go these days, right? So zero waste, trying to reduce waste in your life. We can't talk about reducing waste if we don't talk about waste in general. Some pretty sad facts about trash. Right now in the United States, according to the EPA, which the last study they did was in 2017, people in the US were generating about 4.5 pounds of waste per person per day for a total of about 267.8 million tons. 52% of that waste is landfilled, which means it's dumped into this image that you can see on your screen, just a huge giant pile of garbage. Food is the largest component of what is thrown out, which is about 22% of our waste, and plastics are about 19%. So we're going to talk a lot about plastics because it's sort of, the worst evil, but yeah, so that's where we're sort of starting from. The good news is that despite the generation of waste increasing from 88.1 million tons in 1960 to 267.8 million tons in 2017 when they did that study, this generation rate of 4.5 pounds of waste per person is one of the lowest rates since 1990. So, per person, we're doing better. Over time, recycling rates have increased from just over 6%, recycling only just over 6% of our waste that we generate in 1960 to over 35%. Still doesn't sound that great, right? But it's better. And the disposable waste to landfills has decreased as well over that time. So we're doing okay. But this is just a little depressing video here. So pretty sad state of things. That video was the ocean floor in Taiwan, which I will get to in a minute. So, the more bad news is that 65.5% of our garbage is not being recycled. Many times we think that our items are being recycled, but it turns out they're actually being landfilled, burned, or stockpiled. I'm going to talk about wish cycling a little bit later on, but a lot of times we throw something in the recycling bin and we're like, yeah, I did my part, I recycled. But if we're not doing our part of being careful what we toss in there, there are things that are just ending up in the garbage anyway. One of the biggest issues happening right now is that China used to be the largest buyer of our plastic waste from the US, but now about only half of that plastic waste that we used to export is still being accepted by foreign markets. So the equivalent of 19,000 shipping containers of plastic recycling per month is now stranded in the US, which is enough to fill 250 Olympic-sized swimming pools each month. So what we ended up doing, now that China wasn't accepting our plastic anymore, was trying to find other third world countries to send our garbage to. So those countries are saying, like, this is not our problem. Like, we're not, going to take your waste. So one of those countries was Malaysia, that recently sent back 150 shipping containers of plastic waste back to rich countries, including the US, the UK, France, and Canada, saying, we're not going to take your garbage. During the first 7 months of 2018, when this change from China had happened, plastic waste exported from the US to Malaysia had more than doubled compared with the previous year. So, and then most plastics were actually never possible to recycle at all. In fact, one study found out that only 9% of the plastic ever produced has been recycled, which is, you saw in that video. And there are more than 5 trillion pieces of microplastic in the ocean. So microplastics are when the plastic bottles are, in the water and they're getting eroded by the sun and the water, they're getting broken up into tinier and tinier pieces until they're pieces that we can't see. And it's so pervasive, and we're ingesting it. It's everywhere. And there's more microplastic than there are fish in the ocean. So, no force on earth is going to be able to clean that up. And the best we can do is to just keep more from going in. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So there are 5 concepts of zero waste. Everybody has heard of the 3 R's of recycling, right? Reduce, reuse, recycle. But now we've added a couple of others in here. And this is sort of in the kind of hierarchical order here of what's important. So we're going to talk about each of these separately, but refuse, knowing how to say no to things that we don't really need. Reducing, trying to adopt minimalist tendencies, reduce the amount of things that we feel like we have and need. Reuse, giving things a second life as opposed to just tossing something out and buying a new one every time it breaks, or buying reusable things. Then recycling, prioritizing things that come in recyclable packaging, and then rot, which is compost. So we'll talk about each one of those things. So when we talk about this, sure, it's easy to be like, oh, well, I want to do it because I love the environment. But honestly, the truth of it is that everybody needs sort of an intrinsic reason to do things. And we're selfish in nature, and we want to know what we're going to get out of it ourselves. So the two of the things, the benefits are we can get healthier, because if we stop using things like plastics that leach harmful substances such as BPAs and phthalates. I'm sure that you've seen lots of things that say BPA free. A lot of cheap plastics have these chemicals in them that are suspected causes of cancer, infertility, hyperactivity, neurological conditions, obesity, type 2 diabetes. So all this stuff coming from these plastics that we're using, we are ingesting, and this is what it causes. If we use products with less chemicals, because we choose to use natural beauty products versus, chemical stuff that comes in all kinds of special containers and all these things, we're going to end up using things that are better for us, or even things that you can make on your own. If you buy real food that's like an actual apple as opposed to like apple that's cut up in a plastic bag, or processed stuff that has apple flavoring in it, right? Then we're going to obviously be healthier because we're eating real things. So drinking water instead of buying juice or soda that comes in a plastic container, that's going to make it healthier for us. and letting go of frozen convenience foods that come in a plastic tray with a plastic sheet in a box, right? And then wrapped in plastic again. So, all those things, they're not good for their environment and they're not good for us. So, and then the other thing we can do is save money. So the idea is to consume less. You buy only what you need to replace and not other things you need to add to your inventory. Processed food is more expensive than preparing the same thing from scratch, so you save money there. It's quality over quantity. If you buy something reusable, it might be more money at the outset, but you're not needing to keep buying more when it runs out or when you use it up, right? And so that whole idea of reusing things versus single-use items is saving us money. And then just having less stuff in general means less money. It's very costly to store and maintain and repair all of the things that we own. So if you own less things, you save money there. So the first thing to talk about is refuse. So in this first picture up in the corner, everybody has stuff like this in their house, right? You go to some kind of fair and there's a table that a bank is sponsoring and they're giving out, cheap calculators or a beer koozie or, whatever it is. And your tendency is to want to take it, right? Because it's free. And so it's really hard sometimes to say no, but how many plastic, crappy cups do you need in your cabinet, right? Everybody's got that cabinet full of like water bottles and all that kind of stuff, right? So we sort of have to get out of that mindset of like, it's free, we should take it, and just say, no, thank you. I went recently to an event not recently, when we could go to things with my kids. And I remember they were handing out free water, bottles of water. And we just said, no, it's okay. They looked at us weird and like, why would anybody not take this? But it's like, no, we don't need it. We can bring our own water or whatever. So just kind of getting in that mindset, you can train your family to do the same thing. And it's not about replacing plastics with greener alternatives either. So it's not like saying, oh, well, we're not going to use, straws. There's a whole big thing about straws recently. And, oh, well, now that everybody's using paper straws. But paper straws means you've cut down trees to use the straw, right? So you're going from one bad thing to another. So we don't want to just replace the alternative. We want to just cut it out completely. And then there's all, places that use, we use compostable, bowls or whatever it is. But if the compostable bowl is just getting tossed in the garbage with the rest of the stuff, it doesn't matter that it's compostable because it's not going to be able to break down in a landfill if it's not truly being composted. So that's not the answer. So we have to try to say no to single-use plastics and other disposable items, cups, lids, straws, like that kind of thing. Freebies, and in terms of like when you go to a hotel, right? And they always want to, give you those little shampoos and the little soaps, and they're so cute, and you want to take them home. But that's just more stuff that we're accumulating that's in a little disposable container. So, take your own stuff, take your own shampoo, so you don't feel tempted to take the ones from there. Party favors, like, my kids go to parties and they give goodie bags with all this plastic crap in them, which then is like all over my house, right? So we've tried to like do different things. We try not to give out goodie bags at parties, or try to come up with something that, if we want to send the kids home with something they can use, not just more crap because you feel like you have to and you're obligated to do that. Those things, it's tempting, but it's helpful to remember that generally it's stuff that's poor quality, things that have been produced at low cost, which means that they probably have those harmful substances and BPAs and things like that, were manufactured at the cost of workers and have a terrible environmental footprint. So those kinds of things, if you try to keep that in mind, it's easier to be like, no, I don't really need, the little piece of plastic, whatever it is. Another thing that we can refuse, and by the way, I'm going to mention a lot of products and items and websites, and I will be sending out a virtual handout to Annie after the program so that she can send it out to all of the participants tonight with the list of different resources that I mentioned and books and articles and things like that. So don't feel like you need to scramble down and write stuff down. You'll have it all for you virtually. So one of the things that we can also say no to is junk mail, right? We all get mail that literally goes from the mailbox into the recycling bin. One of those websites is called catalogchoice.org, where it can remove you from catalog mailing lists. So sometimes it's hard because if you order something from a company, like they just automatically start sending you catalogs. So sometimes it's just a matter of calling them and saying, I don't want your catalog anymore. But this website, you can kind of generically get yourself off of mailing lists. So that's really helpful. Also those Valpak coupons, you know, do you ever get that like blue envelope with like all these like Jiffy Lube coupons in there and like furnace, whatever. So, you know, those things too, we generally just toss those out, and you can actually go on the Valpak website and get yourself off the list, and it works. I've done it. I haven't got one of those things in years. There's another website down there that is to opt out of credit card and insurance offers. So any of those things where they're trying to just sell you a better rate or whatever it is. So those are some ways that we can refuse things before we even get them into our homes. And then I just put this little cute cartoon on here of this little wolf going to get his food, and saying no to the plastic cutlery. You know, trying, now that we're all eating from home, right, and ordering carry out, try to tell the people they're ordering from that you don't want their napkins and their forks and their ketchup packets and all those extra little things, right? Trying to say no to those things. So now we're going to reduce, and I will get to the ice cream cone. So the idea with reducing is just reducing the amount of waste that we are creating or disposable things that we're using. So we want to try to choose quality over quantity. So things that are repairable versus disposable. It's really hard now because we are in such a like consumer culture, and things are so easy to make cheaply that things just don't last anymore, right? I know even appliances and things like dishwashers are expected only to last you a few years. And if you want to go get them repaired, it's like, oh, well, it's going to cost you half the cost of a new one. So we just toss it out and get a new one. And that's hard. But there is a website that's called buymeonce.com that kind of rates things and their quality. So you kind of can pick the best of the thing that you're looking for, so that you only have to buy it once, and it'll last you. So that's kind of a good place to start with those kinds of things. We want to try and avoid unnecessary purchases. So like I like to give experiences versus things. So if we're going to go, you know, I gave a friend of mine some passes to like the Lego World or whatever, which I think is actually in Schaumburg. I haven't been, but it's supposed to be cool. I don't think it's called Lego World, but you know what I'm talking about. So that kind of thing, like, or memberships to a museum, or tickets for a play, or a gift certificate to a restaurant, or something like that, right? As opposed to more like toys and stuff. So that's one idea. Another way to sort of avoid purchasing things unnecessarily is to practice waiting. So do you really think you need it as much as you think you do? You know, it's hard in our consumer culture where we can literally with one click have something delivered to our house in an hour, right? So it's very tempting to just be like, oh yeah, I need that, click, done, you got it. So try to, you know, give yourself 2 weeks and say, okay, like I really feel like I want this thing right now. Let me wait 2 weeks. If I still need it, then okay, then I'll go ahead and get it. But sometimes it's just kind of getting over that initial temptation, right? And then you realize, oh, I didn't really need that thing anyway. And if you do, consider buying things secondhand. You know, there's Goodwill, there's lots of Salvation Army, places like that, where you can get things that are perfectly fine, and instead of buying something that's newly made. Recently, I needed like a measuring cup, and I was like, oh, maybe, you know, Goodwill always has like that huge section of like, you know, cooking things and stuff. Sure enough, for 50 cents, I got myself a Pyrex measuring cup, which I would have spent, you know, $10 at Target or whatever. Perfectly fine, use the same, you know, the same exact thing for way cheaper. So that's another good thing, saving money and obviously not producing more. Collaborative consumption, which means borrowing, sharing, using your library, bartering is another way to reduce our accumulation of things. I especially like the idea of bartering in the sense that, you know, now that we're all on social media and those kinds of things, a lot of times you just have to ask and somebody has the thing that you're looking for. You know, recently we wanted to go camping, but we didn't have a tent or, you know, sleeping pads or things like that. But I know I had a lot of friends who like camping, and before we committed to, you know, an investment of money into all of that stuff, what if we hated camping and then we get stuck with it? It was a matter of just putting a little note out there and saying, hey, does anybody have a tent we can borrow? Does anybody have this? Sure enough, you know, tons of offers of stuff. We borrow it and you know, don't have to spend that money in purchasing something that you might not ever use again. And then doing the same for others, right? I mean, just we all have stuff that somebody else could use and borrow. Like we might as well share. Lots of libraries have libraries of things. I don't know if Schaumburg has that, but you know, to the like level of like baking pans or, you know, a mixer or whatever. So it's kind of cool to just have that as an option where we don't have to necessarily buy the thing and then accumulate yet more things in our house. And then as for the ice cream, when you go for ice cream, ask for a cone instead of a cup, because that way you've eaten the whole thing and you have created no waste. Okay, so reuse. So this is all about choosing reusable things over disposable. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute so I can show you some of the products that I have used that are reusable versus disposable. So everybody has, you know, knows about using reusable bags, right? When you go to the grocery store, although now some of these things that I'm going to tell you are not applicable in a pandemic. Who knew? There's a lot of stores that are not letting you bring your own bags into the store. So one of the things that I've found that I can do is if I go into the store and I do my shopping, I don't bag it. I don't have them bag the stuff. I just take the cart back out to my car and then put everything in my bags that I keep in my trunk of my car. So that way I'm not collecting plastic bags, paper bags every week when I'm going to the store. A lot of times now we're ordering our groceries or picking them up curbside and we don't have that choice. But then it's just trying to be responsible about the bags that we've gotten. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But recently I donated a whole bunch of paper bags to my local food pantry as opposed to just recycling them or tossing them out. And they were very happy to use them. So just being creative about that. So cloth grocery bags, I just keep them in the trunk. And then after I'm done unloading my groceries, I hang them from the doorknob so that next time I go out to the car, I'm taking them back out again. So I always have them with me. I've also found these produce bags that are, they are for the fruits and vegetables as opposed to using those plastic bags that they have at the grocery store. They're washable. They don't weigh anything. They have a little tie. And you can find any of these. I mean, I've put links in my handout, but you can really find these online easily. And I really like using these because it's really cut down on the amount of plastic that I've used when I've gone to the grocery store. Washable sponges. So there's a couple of versions. I've found there's a website called Etsy, which is a website where a lot of people make items that you can purchase. So that are like all kinds of things. I mean, jewelry and art and all this other stuff, but they also have a lot of eco-friendly things. So I bought some sponges from people on Etsy before, which are really great because they sew the little, like, have some really cute designs and things, and they're all washable. So you can just, instead of the sponges that you just get really stinky and then you throw them away, these ones you can just throw in your washing machine and reuse. These ones that are very scrubby. They're not very absorbent, but these are made, packaged in the USA with recycled paper and packed by people with disabilities and just like ethically made, as well as being just green in general. And then there's another company, which I will talk about later, where I get my toilet paper, that's called Who Gives a Crap, but I will tell you about that in a little bit. But they have come up with these like magic sponges, and it's hard to tell, but they're sort of a very absorbent, thick kind of cloth kind of material that is, you know, a sponge, but same thing. It's super, super absorbent. And then when it gets gross, you just throw in your washing machine and you can reuse it over and over again. So they're called dream cloths, I believe. And I really like those. So I've definitely gotten away from using sponges at all, except for these things. Cloth napkins. So one of the first changes that I ever made to the things that I was doing when I started to sort of reduce my waste is to go to cloth napkins. It's so easy. A friend of mine made these. She just sort of took some cloth and you can see just made like a little hem all around. They're very cute, like little design. I've had these for years and years and years. And I don't iron them or anything because who has time for that? And then you can, you know, if it's just your family, you can use them a couple of times until they get, you know, gross, and then you just throw them in the wash and you're good to go. So that was a really easy thing, sort of first step that we did to just get away from paper napkins. That is, you know, not really necessary at all. So cloth napkins, cloth handkerchiefs exist. It's a personal preference. If you want to do that these days, I feel like maybe just stick to the Kleenex. But if you're going to get Kleenex or tissues, right, for your nose, there are many options of recycled paper ones as opposed to companies that are killing old growth forests and things like that. So there's ways to just look up, better forms of Kleenexes. Obviously, reusable water bottles or coffee cups. Some places will give you a discount for using your own coffee cup. So that's sort of a thing that I did also pre-pandemic. I think lots of places now will not use your cup, but I used to, if I had a craving for a Starbucks or whatever, if I didn't have my reusable coffee cup with me in the car, then I wouldn't go, right? That was my punishment to myself. So it was a good way to keep me on track, to remind me to have my cup with me if I wanted to go get Starbucks. You save money that way because you probably will forget to have your cup in the car. So then reusable containers for food takeout. So not necessarily now again, but when we are able to go to restaurants again, you can bring containers with you so that you can keep your leftovers yourself, as opposed to like getting some styrofoam or really crappy plastic. And actually those black plastic containers are not able to be recycled because those come from recycled electronics. So they've already been recycled one time, and those just end up getting in the trash. So a lot of restaurants use those. So being able to bring your own containers is helpful for that. Some, even some grocery stores and things like that, they'll let you use your own containers, again, pre-pandemic, for the deli, for example. So you can take your own container, they'll zero it out on the scale and put the stuff in there for you. So you're not having to get a little plastic bag of lunch meat every week when you go to the store. Reusable personal beauty items. So there's a lot of things like this. I got these on Etsy. These are little like cotton pads, but they're sewn. Very cute little designs for makeup removal, that kind of thing, and replaces the cotton balls and pads that you would buy at the store. There's a company called The Last Swab that it's a little container that's really cute. And they came up with a reusable Q-tip cotton swab. This one is for makeup, so it has like a pointy end and a round end, and it's silicone, and you can just wash it with soap and water afterwards. Really cool, because Q-tips are one of those things that, even though we're not supposed to stick things in our ears, we do, and then we throw them away. And if you do that daily, that adds up, right? So it's kind of a cool little alternative option called The Last Swab. It was a Kickstarter, which is when a company has an idea for a product, and you can propose, like, you can invest basically small amounts of money, and the reward is you get the item when it becomes manufactured. So that was from that. So I think those are, and then if you're worried about water, so if you're saying, well, yeah, I'm going to use all these reusable things, but then I'm going to be doing laundry all the time because I got to wash them all. Well, to put it in perspective, it takes 8 gallons of water to make 1 paper plate. Okay, to make a paper plate, 8 gallons of water. If you're using an energy efficient dishwasher, that's 3 to 5 gallons of water for an entire load of dishes. So a lot of these things, like these sponges and things that I was showing you, you can throw them even in the dishwasher and wash them with your dishes. So it's definitely not as bad for the environment than the creation of paper products that we would otherwise use. So don't worry about your laundry bill. Plus, a lot of times, we're now using machines that are super hyper efficient. So we don't really have to worry about that. Another thing we can do is return things to be reused. So for example, your hangers from the dry cleaner, if you dry clean your clothes, a lot of dry cleaners will take those back instead of you collecting them or throwing away or whatever. If you go to farmers markets, you can take back the containers that they give you of the fruits and vegetables so that they can reuse those. And then clothing. So go back to sharing my thing. If you've got kids, we do a lot of trading of hand-me-downs so that clothes get a new life, sharing them with friends. I think I don't think I've bought like brand new clothes for my kids in forever, because we just, you know, pass them down, and then I pass mine down to other people. And even as adults, like I used to do these clothing swaps with friends where you gather up, you know, all the clothes that you feel like one day you might fit into, but the truth is you're never going to. And, you know, you collect them all and take them to your friend's house, and they bring all their clothes that they don't want anymore, and you shop amongst your friends' outfits. And it's really fun. Everybody gets something else that's new to them, but not necessarily new. It's free. And that's kind of a fun way to reuse things that otherwise are just going to be on that hanger in your closet staring at you every time you go in there. And then we've got recycle. So recycle is really not, it's, everybody knows about recycling, right? Everybody thinks, oh, you know, that's so easy and I can just do it outside my house now and no big deal, and that's going to save the world. But as we know, a lot of things are not getting recycled. A lot of things are not recyclable, even though we think that they are. We do this thing, this wish cycling, where we toss it in the bin and we think, yeah, I did it. And then it ends up being thrown away anyway. A lot of this has to do with the fact that China's not buying our plastics anymore. And so what used to be very lucrative for these recycling companies to sort the recycling. So if you did throw something in there that wasn't recyclable, they had people sorting through and tossing stuff out that was that could be recycled or not be recycled. But now it doesn't, because we're getting so little money for our items and nobody wants them. We can't afford to pay people to sort through that stuff. So we have to do it on our own. And you know, people are just lazy. Like, we don't want to rinse stuff out, or we're just going to toss things in, even though we don't check the number, right, to see what number we can recycle. So, so recycling is really not the fail-safe thing that we think it is. And that's why these other elements are more important, reducing and refusing and that kind of thing, before we get to the point where if you have something that is disposable, to recycle it. But so very important to go, for example, on to the Schaumburg or City of Schaumburg website. They have a lot of sort of instructions of what things can be recycled and when can't. So that's a really good place to start. And then there's certain things that just like no curbside project program is going to take. So one of those things is plastic bags. I collect all my plastic bags, and not just plastic bags, but cellophane and the wrapping that, you know, things come in, and all that kind of crinkly soft plastic. And you can take it to, you know, your Jewel, your Home Depot, your Kohl's, your Target, that kind of place, and they will collect those bags. And they will collect it even in COVID times. And what they do is at least the Jewel that I know in the places near here, there's a company called Trex that makes plastic decking. And they, that sort of composite material, they use that plastic to make those. So that's pretty cool, in a way that you can save that and not get it tossed out. Then there's certain like individual recycling programs that are very interesting. For example, contact lenses. So Bausch and Lomb, which is one of the big contact lens companies, has a recycling program where you can recycle both the lenses themselves and the little blister packs that they come in. So I just have a little container next to my sink where at the end of the day, if I'm wearing my contacts, toss them in there, toss the little containers. You don't even have to peel the whole thing off of the plastic. You can just toss the whole thing in there. So it's pretty cool. And so their website has a way to you ship them. Either you can do it through your local eye doctor. A lot of eye doctors are collecting things and have a collection box, and or you can collect it on your own and just you can download a free shipping label and send the contacts. So that's kind of a cool thing. I saw that we have a question up here saying, why do we sell our recyclables to China? Don't US manufacturers have the ability to use them to make things? So yes, I bet you that we do, but I bet you it's way more expensive and that it's a costly process to do that. As we know, like a lot of things we do go to China because it's just cheaper for them to do it. And so I think that's probably why we either haven't developed that technology or hasn't been worth our while. And since China does make a lot of stuff out of cheap plastic, for a while probably was lucrative for them to do that. But they're also picky about the plastic. So a lot of the stuff we were sending them, they were just throwing away anyway. They only wanted certain kinds of plastic. And I think that was a part of it. But So yeah, that's my theory. I haven't looked into it exactly, but that's a good question to wonder why. But that's what I would assume, because everything sort of comes down to money. And then there's this other website called TerraCycle, which is a really cool place or website. They have like a lot of sort of individual recycling programs for things like baby food pouches or candy wrappers or even Swiffer pads. If you can use them and they're be all gross and dirty, and then as long as you dry them out, you can ship them and they'll recycle them. So it's the sort of thing that you have to sign up to join the free programs, and then they'll send you the information about how to recycle different things. And you can do it like at your office and have a collection box for candy wrappers next to the sax machine, and then ship it off to be recycled. So those are a lot of things that otherwise just have to be thrown away. And then I looked up on the Schaumburg website, and there's a lot of really great recycling programs through Schaumburg itself. There's a program to collect CFL bulbs, light bulbs, cell phones, household batteries, textiles. There's some like drop boxes. There's even one to collect Christmas lights and all kinds of copper wiring and other wires. So look those up. Because there's a lot of things like batteries, for example. They've said that it's okay to throw batteries into the garbage as long as like not the rechargeable ones, but just regulars. But really, it's probably not a good idea. And so if there's a collection for that, that's really great, because there's a lot of places that won't take those anymore. So very worth looking into. Okay. And then R, rot, the last R, has to do with compost. So composting is, where you toss all kinds of like food scraps and plant matter and paper and things like that. And you can either do something in your backyard where you have a composter that you have to balance. There's a whole thing where you have to balance greens and browns and things. So there's a right sort of balance of microorganisms and oxygen and things like that for it to break down, and it eventually turns into dirt. So that is one option. Or there is commercial composting, which is what I do. There is a company called Collective Resource, and they checked and they do service Schaumburg as well. And what they do is they bring a plastic like Home Depot bucket, and I have it outside my kitchen door. And once a week, and you can do it bi-weekly, depending on how much you produce, but you put all of your food scraps in there, and it's commercial composting. So it's anything that was once alive. So that means paper, that means bones, it means, dairy, like any kind of stuff. A lot of other programs are limited to sort of just like fruits and vegetables, but they do it all. So they give you a whole list. Ashes from your fireplace. I mean, it's like a whole great, cool, long list of things. So you just put it in your bucket. And then once a week, they collect the bucket and bring you a new one. And then last year, they even put out an email to people that if we wanted to pick up some of the dirt that was created from all the things that we composted for free, you just go and show up with some buckets. And I was able to get a whole bunch of really great, rich dirt for my garden for free. So in Skokie, where I live, the village has partnered with Collective Resource. So it's a subsidized program through the village now. So it's a lot cheaper than what it is if you just go through the company itself. And it makes it sort of a no-brainer. I think I pay like $78 a quarter for them to have that. And it's really cut down on the amount of waste that we are throwing away. So that's been really great. And like I said at the beginning, 22% of the garbage that we throw away is food scraps. So it's good to know that is just going back to the earth. And then I just looked up that in Schaumburg, you all have a composting program as well. It looks like it's $36 a year plus like a one-time $30 fee for something. But it's only for fruits and vegetables, coffee grounds, and yard waste. So you're limited to those things. But hey, it's better than nothing, and it's great that the town is providing that for you. Now, some people might ask, like, well, won't my food scraps just biodegrade, right? Everybody remembers that, chart where they showed us in school of like how long it takes for things to break down, right? Plastic is 100 years, and, this styrofoam never does, and, paper takes 1 year and that kind of thing. Well, yes, under certain conditions. So if we're just throwing our trash into a giant landfill, the landfills are way too overcrowded for that trash to biodegrade. So there's not a lot of dirt, there's very little oxygen, there's very few microorganisms. And so there was a study done by the University of Arizona where they uncovered 50-year-old newspapers that you could still read, 25-year-old hot dogs, corn cobs, and grapes. Okay. So, I mean, hot dogs, I guess we expect they last forever, but corn cobs and grapes, that's organic matter, 25 years old, and you could still tell that they were corn cobs and grapes. Like, things are not breaking down in the landfill. So, so yeah, it's not, it doesn't compare to actually composting and going through that process of breaking things down into dirt. So, and then just some other ideas of other kinds of products and things that can help us to reduce the amount of waste that we're using. So tree-free products. The image behind this, these words are, it's an image of bamboo. Bamboo is sort of like the new hot thing of replacing the things that normally would be made out of paper or things made out of trees. It's very durable and it's very sustainable. It grows very fast. And so it's kind of a great option. And I have some things to show you here that I have that are made out of bamboo. So this is a bamboo paper towel. It comes on a roll just like regular paper towels do, and it's like indestructible. Again, this is one of these things that you can wash it in your washing machine and use it several times. It's absorbent like a paper towel, but it's made out of bamboo, so it's just a lot more sustainable. Very cool product. There is bamboo toilet paper. So the company that I was telling you about is called Who Gives a Crap. They do mail order toilet paper delivery. This is very handy in a pandemic because they send you 48 rolls of toilet paper in a giant cardboard box. Each one is individually wrapped. It's either you can choose an 100% recycled version, or you can use they have a bamboo version, which is a little bit more expensive. 50% of their profits go to build toilets in other places of the world where they need them. There's no inks or dyes or scents. It's 3-ply. It's really nice. I would say it's not going to be like your Charmin Ultra, but it's not going to be like the cheap stuff you have at your office, right? It's going to be in the kind of the middle of that category. We have been using them for a long time, and I really like their stuff. And they donated, I don't know, just when there was a whole toilet paper shortage, they donated so much money to other countries, and so that and just makes you feel good about it too. So so that's another great option of either bamboo or 100% recycled. They also do paper towels and tissue as well. There's also bamboo toothbrushes, which the handle is made out of bamboo, and that's actually compostable. So after the toothbrush part wears off, you just snap off the handle and you can compost that. The bristles are still like a nylon or plastic kind of material of the ones that I've seen. There might be other kinds, but that's kind of cool. There's food wrap. So instead of using aluminum foil, did you know aluminum foil, that stuff never breaks down, it exists forever. So it's good in the sense that it's not plastic. Like if you rinsed it and washed it good, then you could probably recycle it, but otherwise it never ever breaks down. So there's other kinds of options. There's beeswax wraps that you can use, or just I have these like silicone bags that are, instead of Ziploc plastic bags, they're reusable and washable. They come in different sizes, they're freezer safe. And just a really great option to have like a reusable kind of bag for lunches and whatever else, instead of all the little sandwich bags and things. And they have cloth ones too. I like these because I feel like stuff doesn't get as soggy, or if you wanted to put like washed fruit or something like that, it's nicer to have a kind of more durable thing. But that's another thing that I like to use. There's plastic-free detergent. I use, this company is called Drops, and it comes in these little cardboard boxes, and they are little pods that you just toss into your wash, and no plastic involved, so no big giant jug that you're getting from Costco or whatever. They have fabric softener pods. They're it looks like they're plastic, but they're not. This just melts away in the wash. They're cruelty free and scent free, or they can have scents if you want them, and they're vegan and this and that. So, and really, really good quality stuff. I'm a runner and my clothes get disgusting, and I use their soap. They have one specifically for like small loads to wash my running clothes in, and it totally does the trick. So I really like theirs, and it comes in just this box, which is recyclable. So they also do dishwasher detergent too, which same thing, little pods. It's really convenient, no mess. I love it. There's even plastic-free toothpaste. This company is called Bite, and it's kind of cool. They're little tablets. You can see that. I don't know if you remember when you were in school and like Mr. Tooth or whatever would come to your school and teach you about brushing your teeth, and there would be those little red tabs that you would chew on, and they would like show like all the disgusting plaque on your teeth. It's kind of like that, but it's not disgusting. They're like mint flavored. These are charcoal ones, charcoal mint, but you just put some in your mouth, wet your toothbrush, crunch them a little bit, and brush around. They foam up just like toothpaste, and you're not using the plastic tube. And it's a glass jar, and when you want refills, it comes in a little cardboard box, and you just dump the new tablets into your jar, and there you go. So plastic free. Also, I think they're like, it's pretty much all, yeah, it's all organic and natural stuff too. So better for you. You can always make your own toothpaste and cleaning products, although while you're trying to, survive a pandemic and work from home and teach your kids e-learning and, do library programs at night, who has the time to make your own toothpaste and detergent? But if you do, let me know how it goes, because that is also an option. I also made a switch to bar shampoo and bar soap, as opposed to buying liquid soap, that reusable soap. Soap that you have to refill. The bar shampoo is really great. I haven't used this one before, and my mom lent me this one as a demo, but I use a company called Lush. That's from Great Britain, but they have stores everywhere, and they have these really cool bars that come in a tin, and it's all, again, like vegan, cruelty free, no chemical free, and lathers up and everything just like actual shampoo, but you have no waste involved. Like they just give you a little paper bag with the actual bar inside. You have your own little tin that you reuse, and that's really great. So yeah, and I would love, to hear other people's ideas as well too, when we get to the Q&A of what kinds of things other people are doing. Share this again here. So those are just the ideas of the things that I do. So where to get started on all this kind of thing? One of the good places to start is by doing what's called a waste audit. You can see on the screen, this person, what you basically do is like for, a month maybe, or even a couple of weeks, sort of tally up the things that you're throwing away, the kind of garbage that you're creating, and that can show you where you might need to cut back. So this person, for example, uses a lot of paper towels. That's something that's easy to cut down on. You can use those bamboo paper towels. You can use a cloth. You can, find a way. Or maybe it's just saying, well, I think I'm probably always going to use paper towels, but let me switch to the recycled kind because, at least I know that it's better for the environment. This person is using all these disposable coffee cups. That's an easy switch. Why aren't you not using a reusable cup? Things like that. Jello cups, like I get it. I have kids, and a lot of times it's easier to buy the individually packaged things that you can just throw in a lunch bag. But, if you have time on the weekend, make a whole thing of Jello, and then you divide it up and put it into containers and put it in the fridge, and it's ready to go. Meal planning and all that kind of thing is all the rage now. So, do that now that we're more at home and you can do that kind of thing. It makes a difference. And it's money saving as well. It's like 39 cents for a box of Jello as opposed to, $4.99 for a pack or whatever it is. There's a website called goingzerowaste.com that has a lot of great ideas, and she does a 31-day zero waste challenge where every day she had a little like YouTube video of another thing that you can do, another change you can make in your life. So that's another place. You can calculate your ecological footprint, which is really depressing because it sort of tells you like how many earths you are using in the things that you do every day. But it's just a kind of a great way to start out and to give you perspective of like, okay, this is the kind of this is where I'm starting from, and this is all the bad stuff that I'm doing, but here's how I can make a change, and here's where I can make those changes. And then 100 Steps to a Plastic-Free Life. I got a lot of really great tips from there. There's some things that don't apply to me, but might apply to you. So it's a kind of a good place to start and get some ideas. And again, it's not about doing this. It's not like a whole thing of like, well, if I can't get all my garbage into one jar at the end of the year, like it's not worth it. Like, no, we have to make these tiny little changes and it all adds up. So the idea is, we don't need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly. We need millions of people doing it imperfectly. If everybody can make little changes to what they're doing, it all adds up. So, there's this little cartoon that I put here of this little fox who's crying because she bought a banana and it had a sticker on it, and like, oh, the horror, right? You don't have to worry about things like that. Just be conscious of it, and that'll help you make the better choices when you're at the store or whatever it is you're doing. And just that is also will spread to other people. I mean, when I'm at the store and I'm using, one of my reusable produce bags, like people will inevitably be like, hey, that's a really great idea. I never thought of that. Where did you get them? Blah, 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 that kind of thing. So it spreads. And these are all things that we can do as individuals, right? But there's so much more that has to be done on a bigger scale. And I'm not saying that it's all on us. We have to make companies responsible. There's an article that I share in the handout. There was a cruise that Greenpeace organized with major companies like Dow and Procter and Gamble and Coca-Cola, where they took them out on a cruise into the middle of the ocean to where there's this huge giant like pit of garbage basically that's floating in the ocean, and it's just horrible and huge. And these companies were able to look at that and say like, oh my God, this is our garbage. Like these are Coca-Cola bottles, these are Dasani water bottles, these are, things that we have manufactured and created, and now it's here in our beautiful oceans. And they basically made them sit down and come up with ways that they're going to reduce the amount of plastics and things that they're using in their manufacturing of their products. So more of that has to happen. We have to start pushing, and companies like Amazon, and I can't even begin to imagine the amount of waste those kinds of companies use with all their packaging and stuff. But in the meantime, we can refuse, and we can reduce, and we can reuse. And so that's the idea. So that's where I'm at in terms of my presentation. So I would love to hear from people if other people have ideas. I always love hearing what local people are doing in their own towns to reduce and reuse and those kinds of things. So I'd happy to hear that, or questions that people might have about anything.
Definitely. I'm going to give people a moment to type. I know that it sometimes takes a little bit of time to get that information in there. So you can either drop those comments and questions into the chat box or the Q&A. I did have one come in via email that I'd be happy to share.
Sure.
Let me pull it up again. This individual uses the plastic bags that you get at the grocery store for produce over their shoes while traveling as a way to reuse those.
Yeah, that's really good. I know too, a lot of people, like my mom just got some cats, and she uses them, when she's scooping her litter, and so, that's a good way to reuse them. Just, finding another way, because we literally use these things for like 10 minutes from the time we get to the store to the time we get home, and then we're tossing them away. So at least finding a way to reuse, so that is a really good idea.
And then I did drop the Schaumburg recycling information into the chat for anybody that is interested. You can take a look there and see what you can recycle where. That would be helpful to you. Okay, regarding plastic grocery bags, new things from old bags groups are where volunteers make bedding for the homeless by cutting and weaving them into really cool sleeping mats. Also, animal shelters are often happy to take them.
Yes, thank you for sharing that, Mary. We did. There was another where I was at Lake Villa or someplace. Somebody told me about the thing with making the mats, and I think there's even people that have done programs on doing that. Very cool. You can like leave them, and I think it's sort of because of its plastic nature. I'm guessing it would be kind of good good barrier on the ground if you're needing that for people who are homeless or that kind of thing, or like shelters, like you said. Yeah, that's a really great place. I mean, again, ideally we're not creating this plastic and not using these plastic bags. I mean, trying to say no from the outset, but there's things you just can't avoid. Stuff just comes wrapped in that kind of cellophane stuff, and so anything you can do that's not just tossing it into your garbage can is great, in my opinion. So
Definitely.
yeah, there's and that's really what like a lot of this is about. It's about being creative and reusing things, even and not just like plastic bags, but things that you have in your house that you're like, oh, I don't have need for this anymore, I'm just gonna throw it away. Well, be creative and think about another way to use that. When I was in college, I traveled to Cuba, and it was really interesting because in Cuba, they're known for all these cars from like the 1950s, right? And you're thinking to yourself, how are these cars still running, 60 years later or whatever it is? But they have really, because of the embargo and their inability to get new parts and new cars and those kinds of things, they've had to be user ingenuity to kind of engineer things so that they just last longer, and be creative about that. And that always stuck with me, that we live in such a consumer culture where it's like, oh, this thing doesn't work, I'm going to throw it away, as opposed to taking that time to figure it out. Or there's even like little repair clinics where you can take things, and people who just like to tinker will help you fix something, and a lot of times for free. And that's kind of just another thing to kind of keep in mind, as opposed to before you just toss it out and buy a new one. So
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that we had plans to do one of those before the pandemic at the library, but because we can't be there together, we had to waylay that for a bit.
Yeah. I would hope at Skokie, we have a really great new maker space now, and I'm hoping that in the future that'll be something that we can use that space for too, because I think that's something that people have gotten away from, and just like there are people who just really like to help fix, things with gears in them or whatever, and so it'd be nice.
Definitely. Well, I appreciate all the resources that you shared this evening. It doesn't look like we have any more questions, but if you are registered for the program, or if you sent me an email, I know we had a few people on YouTube that wanted that information as well. I will send that out in an email later this evening.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much, Annie. And yeah, my contact info is on there, so if people have questions later, I'm happy to do that. Oh, now there's some things popping in here. Oh, it's just thank you.
Oh, here's another comment. I'm on a Facebook group where people gift items. Today, someone had several half-filled bottles of shampoo they were giving away. One man's junk, another man's treasure.
That is true. I mean, Facebook groups, sometimes you see people selling stuff and you're like, what, but yeah, you can sell anything on Facebook, and you never know, someone might, be able to use it, and or even just giving things away, right? There's so many like free cycle and share sites, and it's just good to, it's exactly right. Like one man's junk is filling another man's treasure. You never know. So
for sure. And our last comment is thank you that came in.
for joining me, and hopefully you learned at least one thing, one little small change you can make.
I know I'm going to make a couple of changes once I log off this evening. So thank you, Monica. We really appreciate it.
All right, it was good to see you. Take care.
Likewise. Good night.
Good night.